Yo, yo, hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to VUX World. I'm your host, Kane Sims, and today's going to be a good one. We're coming thick and fast with these podcasts, and we've got a fantastic guest lined up today. We've got an exciting topic lined up today. We're going to be talking about the future of interactive marketing, the future of interactive audio ads specifically. But before we do that, before we welcome on today's guest, I'd like to give a shout out to the VUX World sponsor. The presenting sponsor for this episode of VUX World is Deepgram. Now, Deepgram is an amazing company doing some fantastic work on the speech recognition front. One of the world's leading speech recognition providers, ASR providers. And so, if you are in the market for a ASR piece of technology, if you're building voice bots, you're building voice assistants, whether you're working on, on-device assistants or hard voice activating hardware, whether you're voice activating apps, whether you're working in call centers, it doesn't matter where you're applying this technology, you will need speech recognition, and Deepgram are one of the leading providers out there. Extremely cost effective, extremely high accuracy, and you'll be hard pushed to find a better provider. So do check out deepgram.com/VUX World if you are interested in learning more. That is deepgram.com/VUX World. They often do a lot of benchmarking. They'll benchmark different providers against each other and show you how it performs versus other providers. And so if you are looking and you're trying to narrow down your search, you're trying to find the right provider for you, then definitely reach out to the team at Deepgram. Thank you, Deepgram, for sponsoring this episode of VUX World, which is all about interactive audio ads, voice-enabled ads. All right, I'm super excited to get into this conversation with the CEO of, I want to say the leading, but it might actually be the only interactive audio ad platform out there, which is absolutely crazy. It is Stas Tushinskiy of Instreamatic. Stas, welcome.
Thank you, Kane. Excited to be here today.
Likewise, I'm excited to have you. I'm absolutely over the moon. I've been following Instreamatic for a long time. I think it might have been probably 2018 when I first started coming across your kind of case studies and stuff like that, and definitely been following you online for a long time, following the progress of Instreamatic. Raised a round of funding at the start of the year. Congratulations on that. And seems like things are going from strength to strength. So congratulations and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No worries, no worries. So where did it come from then? Where did Instreamatic come from? And what does it do for those that don't know Instreamatic? What does it do, and where did it come from?
Instreamatic helps brands engage in the art of human conversation, and we enable ads that talk back. We call them voice ads. And voice ads are built on the elements of human conversation: two-way dialogue, active listening, attention to nuance, and consent. Let me give you a quick example. Imagine you're listening to your favorite music streaming app, and instead of getting a regular 30-second audio ad, you would hear something like this. Hey, Starbucks is here. Do you want to skip the line in the morning and have a hot cup of coffee waiting for you? And you can say, yeah, I love that. All right, this is what you need to do. Download our app. Or you can say, no, I don't like coffee. Go away. All right, sorry about that. We'll try harder next time. And that interactivity creates a very rich relationship between a brand and a consumer, because now brands can actually listen what matters to people. And that changes, from our perspective, all marketing fundamentals.
Because presumably most marketing is, you're learning most of the time based on what people click or whether someone ends up either visiting a site or whatever it might be. But the insights typically they're not as qualitative, are they? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, so traditional marketing, I'm talking about print, TV, and radio, it was just a one-way communication. Then digital marketing came along and it provided clicks, which equals interest. So if you're interested, you click. But then you don't know why 99% of people don't click on your ads. You just don't know. And that leads to something that marketers call remarketing. But that something also annoys a lot of people because they don't understand how it works. So it's like, how come this website knows that I saw these shoes yesterday on another website? And voice marketing and voice technology allows brands to learn about those who are not interested for the very first time. And if you know that Kane is not interested in these shoes, then first you can come back with a different message or different product, or you can stop wasting your ad dollars and freaking Kane out with chasing him on the internet with the same banner.
Interesting. Yeah, ads that talk back is an interesting concept. So what's your background and how did you get kind of like to the point of creating Instreamatic? Is your background in marketing? Is that your history, or is it something that you kind of stumbled into?
So the company stemmed out from a music streaming app. So we were building a music streaming app in Eastern Europe, and back then we thought we were just trying to figure out how you can make money in music streaming, because and I think that is still true today. It's close to impossible to make money on music streaming. I'm not sure, but I think only Spotify reached break even several quarters ago, and we lost a lot of companies along the way. So yeah, and the reason for that is that people don't like paying for subscriptions in general. And at the same time, back then, marketers were not excited about audio ads. And even though they're a lot more excited today, still CPMs are low, especially comparing to video ads. Yeah, I mean, video ad market is $70 billion in the US only, and the audio ad market is somewhat around digital audio, somewhat around $3 billion.
Right.
Dollars in the US.
Interesting.
And we realized that the engagement challenge, the click problem, is the biggest challenge that the audio marketers have. The medium itself works great, but because marketers can measure performance, they prefer to spend more money on Facebook, Google, and YouTube. And voice technology now solves this challenge and allows to measure performance in audio, but also it puts voice tech and voice marketing at the forefront of marketing communication, because you can learn so much before you launch your full-scale campaign across all the other marketing channels.
Interesting. Yeah, so audio ads, I mean, is the spend on audio ads typically a lot lower than video ads because of a audience thing? Is there less people listening to audio than there is watching videos on YouTube, for argument's sake? Like, is that part of the reason, or is it because marketers in general don't really believe in audio advertising in its current form without the interactivity on it?
Last time I looked at the data, I saw that 77% of internet users consume audio content one way or another, either radio, music, podcast. And so the reach is there. So definitely it's not about the audience, not about the scale. I think it's really about measurement. And if you attend any audio advertising conference, the attribution and the measurement is the key topic every year. Yeah.
How is it that typically works then? Because I know of other companies who have experimented with some form of advertising on smart speakers. In fact, I know that Say It Now have been doing some interesting work with Global Radio. I don't know if you've caught this in the UK. Essentially, they've partnered with Global Radio. They run ads on smart speakers, people listening to radio stations on smart speakers, and essentially the call to action is invoke a skill on the smart speaker. So it's not interactive in the Instreamatic sense. It's a call to action to then leave that radio station and launch a skill. And the use case is basically being charity donations. And so you'd listen to a radio ad, it would ask you to go and make a donation, you would invoke the skill, and then it would you'd make the donation. And I know that the way that they've been tracking that is probably in a way that I imagine most marketers are forced to do, which is basically recognizing the time that an ad goes out, and then understanding the traffic in the skill and correlating that to the time that the ad ran. Now, it's not an exact science necessarily, but that's kind of the way that's kind of worked. Apparently it's not going too bad. But I'm wondering whether, before we get into Instreamatic, whether you can share some of the other limitations that are currently exist on traditional audio ad platforms. Is all attribution based on timestamps and then trying to kind of like reconcile activity elsewhere, like on a landing page, and reconcile that with a timestamp? Or what are the challenges with it when it comes to measuring audio ads as they currently stand?
Targeting used to be a big problem, but I would say all the top audio platforms are now really good with it. And what they did is that they made everybody sign up. So you can consume music on Pandora, on iHeart, and all the other apps without signing up. And that wasn't the case like 4 years ago. And they needed that to get some first party data to learn something about their audience to enable targeting. So I think they solved the targeting issue. I mean, the big platforms enhanced the industry at scale. But attribution is still a big challenge, and that drives very low CPMs, which I think is really unfair given how highly emotional audio marketing is. And the reason why it's very emotional, and in some ways it's actually perfect, is because you spark imagination. So imagine you hear an ad, and the ad says, "Hey, just take this perfect trip to Rome. Enjoy your amazing cup of espresso," and on and on. And each listener will have their own perfect picture of that trip. Unlike with video, when you show the picture, and it may resonate or it may not. So I really think that that audio has been unfairly discounted when it comes to advertising pricing.
Yeah, that makes me think of. So I used to make music years ago, and what used to always frustrate me was music videos, because when I used to listen to I used to go to bed listening to music. I used to listen to music 24/7. Used to make music a lot, and whenever I used to listen to music, I used to close my eyes, and that's in fact how I still test voice applications now. Is I close my eyes and I talk to
Mm-hmm.
it, and it helps me visualize and picture what it sounds like. And I used to hate music videos because the image that I would create in my mind when I heard a song would never match the video that it would be on MTV or whatever. So there'd
Mm-hmm.
be a bit of dissonance there between my expectation of what the song should look like, weirdly, and what the actual video looked like. And so you're right that audio has such a kind of like unique impact on people, in a sense of what you picture when you hear a sound might be totally different to what I picture when I hear a sound, but it doesn't
Yeah.
really matter that you picture different things. What matters is your connection to that sound. And so I can imagine that, if you were just to compare, the potential effect on the human brain between video and audio, I would imagine that audio has the potential to be quite powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. It's definitely not worse than video. It has its own strengths and benefits. So video is great as well. But I think audio has its own significant benefits that it can, and its own significant value that it can
Mm.
create for marketers and for brands. So yeah, so I really think that it's, again, super unfair that audio platforms are generating such low CPMs right now.
And is that something that you think Instreamatic might be able to assist with? Like, is the aim of Instreamatic, obviously, I imagine that the business model is that you charge advertisers to use the technology to build the ads. But then if an
Mhm.
Instreamatic powered ad is running in something like a Spotify playlist, is there a revenue share with the platform, or not? How does it how does it work? How does that sound things work?
So on the publisher side, we offer two business models to our clients, to publishers, to platforms. They
Mm-hmm.
can either just license the technology and then they can sell the ads, or they can connect to our marketplace and then we will monetize their content and we will share revenue with them. On the marketer side, yeah, we aggregated a lot of knowledge from the case studies and the campaigns that we have run, and we're talking about, I think, more than 100 right now. And so we provide best practices on what works, what doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
and we also sell voice ads on a CPI basis, which is cost per intent. So not traditional CPM, which is cost per thousand impressions. And that resonates with marketers because they pay for performance. If
Mm.
somebody's not engaging or the engagement was irrelevant, for example, it was just a chatter in the background, then they don't pay
Mm.
for it. And it, at the end of the day, it generates significant uplift in ad yields for publishers because people do talk to ads.
Interesting. That is interesting. So it's a little bit like YouTube, I suppose, where if someone skips, you don't pay for it, whereas if they watch, you do pay for it. That's decent. Where can a end user expect to interact with an Instreamatic ad today? What channels, what platforms, where is it available? And secondly, where is it possibly available?
So in the US, we are live on Pandora. We are live across 200, more than 200 mobile apps that represent radio stations, digital radio. So apps owned by companies like Salem Media, Federated Media, Midwest Family, and others. We're also live in India with Ghana. This is India's largest music app. They have more than 150 million monthly active users. We are integrating with several large publishers as we speak, both in India and in other markets. We're live in Russia. We just started in Japan, and we expect to go live in several new markets a little bit later. And that's big news that we are now expanding into video verticals. So very soon we'll introduce conversational video ads
Interesting.
to marketers.
Interesting. We'll definitely have to talk about that. What does it take then for a platform to support Instreamatic? Because let's say let's take Spotify. We have an app. It's a music playing app largely. The interface is predominantly tap and swipe. However, mobile phones have a microphone on them. So what would be the process for a company like a Spotify to incorporate Instreamatic into its platform?
The platform has to integrate our code SDK, and that SDK, it manages the ad experience. So the moment it get activated by the app, it unpacks this dialogue-based advertising experience, and then when the experience is complete, it reports the intent, what actually happened, and then it and that's it. And on the back end, we are fully compatible with the existing ad tech ecosystem. So so it's really easy and no integration required in terms of plugging in Instreamatic into existing pipes and plumbing of the ad tech.
Interesting. And so where do you see this most? Where is it mostly applied now? Is it mostly applied in apps? Is it mostly via smart speakers? Like, what kind of surface is it most commonly used on at the moment?
It's native iOS and Android apps. Currently, all the smart speaker companies, they don't allow any kind of interactive advertising for everybody. So it's a policy thing, not a technical issue. Technically, we can do it right now, but because all of them banned, and it's still, a lot of people tell me this, but it's such a natural place for voice activated advertising because it's a voice enabled environment. But there is no clear answer why they don't allow voice enabled advertising and why they prefer old school 30-second audio ads.
A strange one, that, because you're right, it seems perfect and it's much better than the interruptive 30-second long ad because you have the choice about whether you are interested in it or not. And it utilizes the absolute fundamental nature of the platform, which is its interactivity. So it's it's interesting that. So I'm assuming then that this can run anywhere with a operating system and a microphone. Potentially there's nothing stopping this from running on smart speakers. There's potentially nothing stopping this from running in cars, for example. Am I right?
Yeah. Eventually it'll be everywhere. And what's happening right now is that every medium is becoming voice enabled. So audio was at the forefront of it. Now TVs are growing really fast in terms of voice tech adoption and voice interface. Then we're going to see voice enabled fitness apps, gaming apps. Navigation is already voice enabled. So like every medium is going to be voice enabled, both from the content perspective and from the advertising perspective.
So as an advertiser, you've got the
Sorry,
ability.
can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, go on.
Let's say we can do interactive podcasts right now,
Yes.
like that Black Mirror episode, the
Yeah.
interactive one. Would you be open to producing a lot of content, and you would know that people probably won't hear it all because one person can go in that direction,
Hmm.
another person can go in a different direction. Would you like that
I think
situation?
so. I think so because there is more. It makes everything unique for everyone based on what they would prefer, and also
Hmm.
you've got potential for increased engagement. It's not very often people listen to a podcast episode more than once, but if they
Hmm.
know that there's other things in there which they didn't experience the first time around, then potentially they may come back around the second time and see what else is around there. So I think there's an opportunity there for something like that. Definitely.
Hmm.
Is that up the pipeline? Like, is it the interactive?
It just came to my mind. I was curious how you feel about it. How
I
you
think,
feel about the fact that you will have to produce, let's say, an hour long content, and on the average, people will hear 30 minutes of it. Because, for example, we're talking, and then you ask me one question, and then you ask me a different question, and then the listener decides, oh, I don't want to hear that answer.
yeah,
I want to hear them discussing another topic, so I'm going to go that way.
yeah. I think. Well, you do that with anyone who's ever built an Alexa skill before has done that. You know, you have to build out a whole bunch of stuff that no one might ever use, and you don't really know that until you've gone through the process. And so
Hmm.
it's yeah, just part of the process. I think. I suppose it depends on the overhead, doesn't it? If you, I mean, for me, the mic's already set up. We hit play and we run, so we could have a conversation for 2 hours, and then we'd
Hmm.
just chop it all up into bits, and then the effort wouldn't be tremendous. Whereas if it was a full on produced thing with music and everything's been scripted and properly designed, then it could take months just to create one one kind
Hmm.
of thing, couldn't it? But I think in principle that's decent because I don't know if you've seen. Did you see the digital radio and audio review that the UK government published last week?
No, I haven't.
So it's really interesting. Essentially, what it is that the government commissioned a review, and a lot of radio stations in the UK were involved in doing the review. BBC were involved. I think Bauer Media were involved, and
Hmm.
they were reviewing emerging technologies and looking at the changing landscape of radio consumption essentially, and they recognized that smart speakers, something like 67% of people who have a smart speaker listen to radio on the smart speaker. So they identified smart speakers as being like a replacement for radio. They're going to decommission the FM radios. Everyone's moving to DAB radios. There's a bunch of people who won't have access to DAB signals, so they think that smart speakers are going to be a replacement anyway. The upshot of the report was that it recommends that legislation is brought in to smart speakers so that smart speaker manufacturers and voice assistant providers have to always guarantee free access to UK radio stations and always also have to, I think they phrased it as something like that it requires privileged carriaging, which essentially means like prominent positioning on the platform, essentially is what I
Hmm.
translate that to. And the way that I read every single word of that report. I written a pretty extensive review of it on VUX World, and my take on it was that the radio industry is attempting to try and shield itself from the inevitable disruption that the internet brings. That's now bringing it
Hmm.
towards the radio industry because you have things like interactive mediums now, Instreamatic, interactive ads, Alexa,
Hmm.
Google Assistant, interactive voice assistants, interactive internet, basically. Um, and one of the things I was talking about is the fact that radio hasn't changed forever, and what getting around to the point is making me think that podcasting hasn't actually changed in forever either, and it's very similar in that it is a one-way street, and there is no dialogue, there's no interactivity. This is good because people can make a comment, but fundamentally it's a one-way street. So I think
Hmm.
that this technology has the potential to disrupt quite a few industries. I'm sure you would agree.
Oh, definitely. If we look at the macro trends, people always choose faster and more interactive content consumption, and TikTok is a great example. And yeah, and our life is just getting more intense, which means that we need to make more decisions every day and make them faster, and that affects how we consume content. And so, if any content producer uh, that doesn't adapt, I mean, eventually they're gonna, you know, they're going to disappear
Mm.
because government protection can only last. It can last forever. If
Mm.
people if people want to know what they're going to hear and they want it fast and now and right now, and then they want to switch in 2 minutes, then offering them to listen for 3 hours, it's tough. But I think the big question is, why is radio still around? And I think the honest answer is that people love radio because they don't need to control the content. They can turn it on and it plays in the background for as long as you want.
Mm.
And I also read some. We probably shouldn't call it like a proper study, but it was like a small study which showed that longer YouTube videos, so longer podcasts, sometimes gain a lot more listens and views than shorter ones because people want to listen to them in the background while they're working, for example, or while they're doing something. So if it ends too early, like in 30 minutes, people feel disappointed and they don't even want to start listening to it. They want something that's an hour long or 2 hours long because they're about to be really busy and they don't want to go back to thinking, oh, what should I play next?
Interesting. Yeah. I suppose it's horses for courses, isn't it? You've got sometimes you're in that mode where you want in that kind of like micro content sort of thing. Other times you're in a mode where you want something ambient and it's playing in the background. For Instreamatic, as a company who is really positioning itself in that interactivity space, how do you sort of approach that more longer form audio space then, knowing that it might just be on in the background and possibly potentially a prompt for an interacting with an ad might not be heard or whatever? What are your thoughts on that sort of longer form audio space and whether Instreamatic fits into that?
So our vision and our goal and the strategy is to voice enable the entire marketing cycle, and advertising is the first application of the technology. And even within the advertising space, we see multiple use cases. So the first one that we already discussed is this dialogue-based format, which is perfect for on-demand environment. It could be podcast, it could be music, on-demand music, pure plays. But then we have a lot of linear streaming consumption. And this dialogue-based format isn't a great fit because you have to really fit in the 30-second spots. And now we are introducing this product that we call active audio. So it's a wake word-based activation solution that allows you as a listener to respond either to an ad or to a content just by saying the wake word. So it can be, hey, podcast, open the web page that this guy just promoted. Or, for example, if we're discussing something and you say, hey, listeners, I'm curious, what do you think about why radio is still alive? Let me know right now. And a lot of people can just say, hey, podcast, that's the wake word. It's just an example. And then everybody can give their opinions. And then you'll see all the analytics and all the responses. So not only it can be used for advertising, it also can be used for voice engagement with the audience.
Interesting. And presumably, when you're talking about voice enabling the whole marketing cycle, you referred to video earlier on. I'm assuming that you can see a world where not just mobile and smart displays or whatever, but I think TV seems to be a place that's absolutely desperate for something like this. Where I'll tell you what my ultimate frustration at the moment is, right? There is a TV mast. I was talking to you before we started the recording saying that I've moved, right? There's a TV mast probably about 50 miles away from here that provides the analog or digital TV signal to most of the north, right? And it got burnt down. And so no one's had any TV for absolutely ages. So we've been using the ITV hub, right? My mate works at ITV, so I'm not kind of like necessarily not a fan of ITV, but the ITV hub, the most frustrating thing about it is you'll go on there to watch the TV, and let's say you want to watch live TV, you'll click on whatever's on right now, and every single time you start watching something, it will play probably about 3 to 5 minutes worth of ads before you get to the live telly. But let's say that you start watching live telly at 6:15, it'll play you 5 minutes worth of ads, and then the live TV will start, and there'll be an ad break. So you'll be in another 5 minutes into ads, and so it sometimes feels like you've just got you're just bombarded with ads, and it's the most frustrating thing in the world. So being able to say, skip this one, have 150 ads lined up if you want to, and I'll just keep saying skip, and I'll spend the same length of time skipping, but at least I might find one in there that I say, yeah, go on then, yeah, I'm interested in that. Do you know what I mean? So the TV model is fundamentally broken. Is that where the interactive video ads you think is going? Do you think that's a ripe area for this to be applied?
Oh, for sure. If we take a look at the recent announcements by Roku and by Comcast, they're doubling down on voice heavily. Like, for example, Roku introduced this remote control that catches voice from big distance, so you don't have to actually hold it in front of your mouth. You can just give a command and it'll catch it from far away. And Comcast, half of the press release, Comcast just introduced their own Comcast TV, and half of the press release just about voice tech. Wow. So yeah, I totally agree that the TV market is ripe for voice revolution, both in terms of how you manage the content and also obviously how you engage with ads.
Interesting. So that's the sort of like I suppose the point of consumption, you might call it, the point of engagement. You've got TV, mobile, potentially smart speakers if they get their act together, cars, anything that's got a voice activity, a mic, and an internet connection, essentially, is potentially where you might find an interactive ad in the future. How do you actually create them then? So let's say if I'm brand X and I want to have an interactive ad running in Pandora, what do I do? How do I actually do it?
So the voice ad consists of 3 components. The first one is an invitation to a dialogue. That's like 10 to 15 seconds intro tease that provides the setup. So it's like, hey, like in the Starbucks example, okay, it's like, hey, this is your favorite coffee shop. How about this? It should end with a question, or with something like, let me know what you want to do right now. Then the second part is user response. So then we open microphone for 4 seconds to allow the listener to respond, and then he or she can say, sure, yeah, give it to me, not now, if all the anything. We understand the intent, and then we deliver the third part, which is the consecutive audio with the target action based on the intent. So if the intent was interest, then it'll be, let's say, another 20 seconds of an audio ad with potentially a link that we can open in browser. Or if the intent was no interest, then it can be as short as, all right, thanks, we'll try harder next time.
Interesting. That sounds fair enough. So,
but my favorite ones, when people use profanity, we call it strong no intent. So if you're strongly not interested, then we think it's the best place to respond with a joke.
Yeah,
that can be like, does your mother know you talk like this?
That's good. So is that handled by the platform, or is that something that the client can specify?
So we manage it completely on our end, and we work with brands and with agencies to make it funny and engagement. Well, funny when appropriate, because not every time, not all campaigns can be made funny. But one of my favorite ones was our campaign for IKEA, when they leveraged the silence as an intent. So they were promoting sleeping mattresses, right. And obviously, if you're interested, not interested, then it's obvious what's going to happen next. But then there were people who didn't say anything, was silence, and IKEA said, it's so quiet out there. Maybe you're already sleeping in our great mattresses. Good night.
That's really good. That is cool. It's interesting. So when somebody, so you've got that first bit, the what people who design voice user interfaces or conversational user interfaces would probably call that kind of like prompt, that welcome prompt, essentially. Here's a setup. Are you interested? Yes or no? Is there like a standard bunch of intents that Instreamatic has that is obviously things like, yes, I'm interested, yes, tell me more, I'm assuming that those are kind of like a standard group of intents that you have, but could the client sort of like specify their own intents, for
Yeah,
example? Yeah.
yeah, and we also have the Easter egg functionality. So this is a feature for true fans. So imagine you're hearing in a Star Wars promotion commercial,
Mm.
and then instead of giving a, let's say, a standard response like I'm interested, not interested, you as a true fan can say, "Let the force be with you," and then the entire ad changes to the Darth Vader voice, and then he can give you some extra hidden content.
Classic. That's quite good. That what sounds quite. What's good about this is that presumably you like there's a degree of production involved, obviously.
Mhm,
So if you want to create something that's really engaging, rather than like a text to speech voice that just reads some words, it's nice to have a bit of music, a voiceover, and all that kind of like essentially the production quality of an actual ad. But you've got
mhm,
the interactivity element. But what's quite good about it is that I'm assuming that the platform and your technology can actually go on and have conversational dialogues that can run for as many turns as it needs to. But I think what's interesting about the way you're explaining it is that it completely lowers the barrier to entry to actually doing something because
mhm,
presumably you're a marketer doesn't need to know conversation design, voice user interface design. They just need to understand those three core concepts of setup, content, call to action, and then they can get up and running without worrying themselves around intents and NLUs and this that, and the other.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. Marketers don't have to know anything about the voice tech.
Hmm, interesting. And how long would it, so do you get involved in the production of the ads or not?
Sometimes, yeah. Well, we are always involved as a best practice provider,
Right.
and sometimes we're involved in the creative production too. We work with third party vendors, so we're not a studio, but
Yeah.
we have third party vendors that understand how this should work, and they produce creatives really fast.
Interesting. What are some of the things that you've learned then over the last sort of like, I don't know, 3 years or so? You've got ad running on Pandora and all this that kind of things. What do you think are some of the like the best practices for people
Mhm.
who've never done it before? They're considering using Instreamatic. They want to go and launch their first ad. What are some of the best practices that you think they should be taking on board?
I think one of the most interesting findings was that longer ads work better in this environment. Because originally we thought that it should be around 7 second long. I'm talking about the intro part, the
Right.
first part. And then we saw that when you deliver a 15-second ad, an invitation to a dialogue, it works better. And the reason for that is because this is a new experience and a new behavioral pattern. 7 seconds is not enough for a person to switch the context in the head. So it's like,
Mhm.
oh, this is the ad that I can talk to, so I'm gonna focus more on it. What's the question? And 7 seconds is just not enough. And one of the recommendations is say this is one of those ads that you can speak with. It's really
Right.
important. That kind of drives more attention. And
Mm.
then always end with a question or with a call to action like let me know if you're interested. Otherwise, it's not going to work because then people are not going to expect that, oh, this is when they should actually respond. And also, we saw that when you ask two or more questions at the same time, also doesn't work. So it's like,
Mm.
uh, tell me, are you interested? Are you going to buy it? Are you available tomorrow
Yeah.
for a test drive? So if you answer like two or three questions, in a row, then people get confused and not going to
Mm.
respond to any of them.
It's a lot to take in, isn't it? I suppose.
Mhm.
Um, Interesting. What are some of the sort of results that you've seen, and what's been the best kind of results from prompt to engagement? What's a typical like average or successful campaign in terms of number of people that listen to the first prompt versus number of people that
Mhm.
engage?
So the average engagement rate is, I would say, around 10% right now. Sometimes it goes as high as 20 plus, heavily dependent on the creative. And we had one particular campaign, and I think it's a very interesting one because it was really atypical for us in terms of usually we see like let's say 5% interest rate and 7% no interest rate. And this one had 2% interest rate and 19% no interest rate. So we never saw anything like this, neither before nor after. And the client thought, oh my God, voice ads suck, they don't work, or it's not for us. And we told them like, no, this is the most successful campaign we ever did because you were not able to learn that that there is something wrong, either with your brand or with the product or with the message or with the ad. But now you know, because we never saw that level of no interest before. So it's massive success if you look at it from the right perspective.
So a no interest rate would be somebody explicitly saying, no, thank you, I'm not interested in this.
Right, all the ways you can say no.
Right. And the interest rate comes from the number of people that say yes.
Yeah, yes, sure, give it to me, I'm ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So run those numbers past me again then. So you said 2% interest rate and 90% no interest, or 19? 19.
Yeah.
What happened to the other 68, 78%?
Silence.
So some people just be quiet and don't say. Interesting. I wonder how much of that is because they might not necessarily be completely familiar with the interactivity nature of it.
That's a good question. Well, I think some of them just have nothing to say. I mean, they're like, okay, that's an ad. All right.
Yeah.
I'm neither interested nor not interested. Sometimes people are just not there. When they, as you know, when people consume audio, especially music, they do it in the background, and they may just leave the room for 5 minutes and the ad played. But still, the engagement rate is multiple orders of magnitude higher than any other digital format, because the average click-through rate on mobile ads right now is less than 1%. And voice ads generate 10. So it's not 5% improvement. It's 10 times.
Interesting. It's very novel as well, isn't it? You know, it's like a lot of people don't necessarily know that they can talk to adverts yet. And when they eventually try, I wonder how much of it also is like experimentation, because it's a little bit like, you know, smart speakers and stuff like that. It's like once you know that you can do something with it, you then tend to do that more often.
Yep.
So I think it's almost like, even though those early results, and I say early because in the scheme of the history of time and the world, this is very early, isn't it? You know, but I wonder when people get more confident, and there's more understanding, and there's broader availability. You know, I think that'll only ever get higher, surely.
Yeah. It will, and the ad's gonna be more relevant, because right now we're really at the tipping point, right in the beginning. You can think of voice ads as mobile ads 12 years ago. Everybody's excited about it, but most people not sure how they should think about them and what's right. Or you can think about, you can remember how video ads got started. I remember that really well because I was somewhat involved, not in video ads, I was involved in, back then I was working at a gaming developer company, and there was a big discussion in the mobile gaming community, like, these companies are pushing video ads, but video ads suck because they ruined the gaming experience. So no gaming developer ever gonna integrate video ads. And we know where they are today. Every game has a video ad there.
Interesting.
So it really just requires some time.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on I think that how you've described it, I think, sounds perfect for now, in terms of prompt, are you interested or not? Yes, I am. Okay, here's the ad. Because I think that as people get comfortable talking to adverts, just that initial kind of prompt, I think it goes a tremendous amount in terms of generating or understanding interest, and also giving the user a choice, which is what a lot of ads don't do, especially in traditional channels like radio and broadcasting and TV. Do you see a future where these ads will become even more interactive, like multiple turn dialogues and things like that? Or do you think that at the moment there's a sweet spot there with prompt advert?
I think that because voice ads generate higher engagement and they have the power of being just more relevant, that should lead to lower ad loads. Because now you as a marketer, you don't need to reach a certain frequency number. Sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 5, or sometimes we get 20 ads, 20 same ads during the month. And now if you can have a conversation, you don't need all of that. So the result should be fewer ads and more relevant ads, because now you're actually creating a relationship with the brand, and the relationship can last for many years. So imagine, I don't know, you turn 21 and you hear an ad that goes like, hey, this is Infinity Cars. We remember that 5 years ago we spoke with you, and back then you were just 16 years old. It was too early to talk about buying a car, but now it's the right moment. So are you ready?
Interesting. What kind of that obviously excuse me, that obviously takes a degree of understanding and analytics and all of that kind of stuff to be able to do things like that. And we've touched on it a little bit earlier on about this kind of like insight that can be generated, and the example you gave around you know, people saying, no, I'm not interested, being valuable information, which it is, because if it was just a 30-second block of audio, then you wouldn't ever get that kind of insight. But what's an example of some of the other kind of insight that you've been able to generate for marketers running ads on the platform?
We see that continuous conversational ads work really great. And by continuous, we mean when you actually connect multiple ads in a single storyline, in a single narrative. And we published the case study that we did for Infinity Cars. And what they did is the first ad suggested scheduling a test drive. And I think they had somewhat, I might be mistaken, but I think they got 19% engagement rate. Then the second ad was delivered to those who were not interested in the test drive. And the second ad said, hey, it's Infinity again. How about just visiting our website and checking out videos and pictures? And 5.5% of those who declined the test drive changed their mind and agreed to a landing page. So it shows that when you know why people are not interested and who are those people, then you can actually significantly improve efficiency of your marketing campaigns.
That is really good, because I suppose the question then becomes, is that because the first advert was just kind of like going for a real hard conversion when it should have really been trying to engage people? Or was it because the second ad was the second ad and they thought, oh, actually that's more relevant? You know, there's a personalized element to it, isn't there? You understand that I wasn't interested in the first thing. How about this?
Yep.
It's interesting how that kind of works. It doesn't really matter, I suppose, what the cause was, but the reality is that people who declined the first ad are now engaging. So it's an ability to have a second bite of the cherry without being so annoying, like the retargeting ads that just follow you around the internet.
Yeah. And what's really great about it is that it's really clear and transparent to people why this happens, because they remember, oh yeah, I talked to Infinity, or I talked to this brand before. So obviously they should remember what I say because I told them so. Unlike with classical retargeting, when people have no idea why they're seeing this banner of a product that they saw on Amazon, for example, last week. So I think, and I really hope that brands will eventually gain a lot more power in a good way when it comes to ad tech. Right now, brands are very limited in the data they can access and the data they can use for better advertising experience. And I hope that with voice ads, we'll end up in a situation where brands can actually remember their private experience with you, their private conversation with you. And you as a user would expect them to remember it because that's how we work. When we talk to people, we expect that they don't ignore us. We expect them that they remember the context and history of our conversation. And that makes it transparent, engaging, and creates a very rich relationship between brands and consumers. And that could be a great segue into the whole sonic identity conversation, but that's a different topic.
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, well, sonic identity on the audio front has kind of been something that has been understood, I suppose, for a while. You know, you've got certain companies that have various jingles, but the thing is that most of the time there's a guy who he started a garage in Teesside where I'm from originally, and he used the garage is called South Cleveland Garages, and they used to run ads all over the radio in all across the Northeast, and they borrowed the song "Simply the Best." And it goes "Simply the Best," but then they re-recorded it, and then instead of goes "ding ding ding," they sing "South Cleveland Garages" like that. And so even now to this day, when I hear the song "Simply the Best," I always have to sing "South Cleveland Garages," and you always know, no matter where you are in the world, when someone's from Teesside, because if that song comes on, they'll all sing "South Cleveland Garages."
That's hilarious.
But the thing is, and this isn't just the case for South Cleveland Garages. This is the case, I think, for a lot of brands that advertise on the TV, a lot of brands that advertise on the radio, is that there is at least a degree of understanding about the power of audio. You know, you've got various I don't know, the Intel is obviously the prime example, and a lot of other things like, you know, celebrity voiceover actors and stuff like that, because they know that the audio and the messenger is important, but it never seems to leave that channel. It never seems to leave the radio into their mobile app. For example, the earcons that they use in their Alexa skill is nothing like how their brand sounds on TV, and there's just absolutely no kind of integration with any of it all. Are you finding that your clients are, one, taking their sonic identity seriously when it comes to audio ads and interactive audio ads on Instreamatic? And then two, a follow-up question around, are you seeing a more holistic approach to sonic branding in general or not?
We are not a creative agency, so we can't help with sonic identity. I think there are people that know a lot more than us when it comes to sonic identity, but I think the sonic identity can really help brands with more engaging conversations through voice experiences, because then if it's that recognizable voice, then you don't have to introduce yourself every time, and that just makes it more personal. Unlike sometimes you even hear the same voices on different radio commercials, right?
You do,
because
yeah,
it's
you do,
usually sometimes the same talent pool. It reminds me, we were in Germany at Mexico, I think 2 or 3 years ago, before COVID, and we were in a taxi cab, and there was a radio playing, and we heard an IKEA commercial. And in Germany, at least back then, they used a guy with a very thick Swedish accent, and that just make the ad so recognizable. If you hear the guy with this thick Swedish accent, you immediately think, "Oh, it's IKEA talking." I'm kind of, and you immediately get in the context. So an advertiser doesn't have to spend 5-7 seconds introducing the setup.
Yeah, it does. It's crucially important, I think, the sonic identity side of things in any audio channel. I think that the fine line, I think, especially when it comes to the voice acting, is that there's a guy who, and I can't remember his name, but he voices the Dacia commercials in the UK. I don't know if Dacia even advertised in the US, because I think it might be an Italian car. But and the thing is, when the very first time I saw the Dacia advert with this guy doing the narration, I didn't even realize it was Dacia. I only know it's Dacia now because I've seen it so many times and I hear his voice everywhere on the radio, on the TV commercials and stuff. But the very first time I heard it, all I could think about is, who on earth is that? Where have I heard that voice before? I'm sure I know this voice. Gemma, what voice is this? And so I wasn't even paying attention to the ad. I was just trying to recognize the voice. So I think that the unique voice is crucial. But if it's too familiar, I think that potentially could be dangerous territory. You want something that's unique and recognizable, but not something that's going to distract someone and say, "Is that Samuel L. Jackson?" Or is that, you know what I mean?
Right. Right.
Interesting.
Totally agree.
Yeah, it's interesting. No, I'm looking forward to seeing how it kind of goes. Where do you think it's? We kind of touched a little bit on where it's heading in terms of, you know, potentially TVs and all this kind of stuff. Like, but from your perspectives on where you think the appetite or willingness or enthusiasm for marketers is at the moment, and then where you think that we'll see this technology and these kind of ads go next. What do you think the next kind of like 12-month has in store, 12 to 24 months?
So we already seen more marketers trying voice ads for the very first time, and at the same time, we see more marketers placing repeat buys, and it's a very healthy signal that those who tried it, they want more, and at the same time, we're getting more interest from those who haven't tried it before. And also, when it comes to voice-enabled audio ads, they are attracting new categories of advertisers to the audio space that never bought audio ads before. And I'm talking about performance-focused advertisers, those who want to measure, those who want to build, conversion funnels. And now it's possible. So, yeah, we're gonna see more brands, more case studies. By the way, we just published the very first industry report on the state of voice advertising. I strongly recommend everybody to go to Instreamatic.com and download it. We aggregated everything we know so far. We talked to many industry experts, and I think it's a good starting point for the industry.
Fantastic. I will put that in the show notes without a shadow of a doubt, so people can head to VUX.world once it's done, and also to Instreamatic.com. Where is it? It is Instreamatic.com, isn't it? I'm glad it's Instreamatic.com and not Instreamatic.ai and this kind of stuff, because I'll see this .ai domain now. It's just a little pet peeve I've got these days at the minute. I don't know what it is, but I'm seeing .ai all over the place. And when I was looking earlier on, I thought Instreamatic.com, that's something with longevity. It's something that is global, and it doesn't have to be sounding too techie, because I think that's I touched on it earlier on. It sounds to me as though the platform is very accessible, and that you don't have to be super techie or like an advanced technologist to be able to utilize it. It's very accessible to all marketers, and so yeah, just a little observation I had there. I thought that's a good move, Instreamatic.com.
Thank you.
So I'm assuming I'll put the link on here. I'm assuming that's where people can go to find out more about Instreamatic. Any other areas that we think that people should check out? Any other ways to follow you? Twitters, things like that?
Yeah, I'm everywhere, but I'm most active on LinkedIn.
Cool.
We're still a B2B company, so that's where other companies find us.
Perfect. Wicked. Well, Stas, this has been absolutely unbelievable. I'm a huge fan of Instreamatic. I said before, I've been following the journey since probably 2018 or so, and yeah, definitely enthusiastic about this whole interactive voice ad space. I think it's literally just getting started, and I think that the growth is only, I think, going to be limited by people's behavior and how quickly you can get into certain platforms, as in how quickly can you actually get BBC or rather ITV or HBO or whoever it might be to stick Instreamatic interactive video ads into their on-demand player in TVs? How quickly can you get Mercedes to list Instreamatic ads on their MUBX head units and infotainment systems? That's half of the only thing I can see limiting it is how fast can you get onto all these platforms.
Yeah, exactly. We as an industry, we need more scale. So yeah, the more platforms activate voice advertising, the faster the industry will grow, and the better the world becomes. Because just to be real here, people don't like ads, but people love brands. And we think that voice technology can kind of make the two worlds closer to each other, so that people can actually enjoy some of the ads.
Yeah, and that's the thing, it's enjoyment, isn't it? I think that sometimes everyone loves a good ad. really, don't they?
Mhm.
People hate ads, but good ads. Everyone's got the
Yeah.
memories of the classic ads for when you were a kid and stuff like that. You know, the Kit
Mhm.
Kat of the panda, or the guy who's sitting having a Kit Kat and he's breaking it open. He's been. Did you see that one? I always remember this one.
Mhm.
It's Kit Kat, and there's a guy who's panda watching, and he's sitting there with some binoculars, and he's waiting for ages for these pandas to arrive, and they never arrive.
Mhm.
Anyway, he turns around, gets a cup of tea, opens a Kit Kat, and he has a break. And while he opens his Kit Kat, there's a bunch of pandas behind him dancing about and stuff like that. And then by the time he's finished his Kit Kat, he turns back around, they've all gone away. And he gets his glasses out again, his binoculars. There's always classic ads, but I think that this medium makes all ads potentially fun because it's novel,
Mhm.
it's engaging. I can be involved in it. I don't have to be passive and listen to what you decide is relevant for me. I can decide what's relevant for me, and I can just choose to whether or not to engage in something. So I think it's more relevant advertising. I think is the important thing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the plan.
Nice. Well, Stas, it's been an absolute pleasure. Totally appreciate you spending some time with us. And do, boys and girls, check out Instreamatic.com. And yeah, go there, download that report. I'm sure that will be, I'm going to definitely get on that myself, to be fair. So yeah, thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening. And we'll see you again next week, where we are speaking to Audio Burst on Wednesday night. And we're speaking to Got It AI on Thursday night. So same bat time, same bat channel. See you soon.
Thank you very much. Bye.